Welcome to Fuse Summer Training Episode 1. It's not really an episode. This is just the first of 4 sessions that I'm going to record. We are meeting in person, but if you're watching this, that means that you are unable to join us on our first Fuse Summer Training, which is fine, but I do want everyone to watch all 4 of these. So we have decided to take the month of July and take a step back, although we were already taking a step back because of COVID and quarantine, but to take a step back, reevaluate, open up the doors. Anybody want to join the Fuse family? Anybody want to come alongside us and help us love teenagers? Now is an excellent time to do that. We want to, in this time, kind of take a step back and have a bird's eye view of Fuse student ministry at LifeSpring Church, and also to take a look at the folks around us, each other, and to redevelop and encourage and love on the Fuse family. So, welcome. This video I may do a couple different segments. We are meeting on Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, the first 4 Wednesdays in July. And we will use that whole time. I mean, we'll, at the beginning, have a little bit of time to gather and catch up. But then we are gathering in the auditorium, and I'm kind of just going through a lot of the nuts and bolts of what Fuse is, why we're doing what we do, and also spend some time encountering each other. My hope at the end of each night of Fuse Summer Training that you would have quality encounters with God. So we are going to spend some time worshiping, or I'll offer some type of spiritual emphasis that hopefully we can all encounter God in a new way or on a different level. And also I want you to have a quality encounter with at least one other person, one other Fuse leader. Now, if you're watching this video, that means that you probably aren't going to have that opportunity, and I'm not going to show the worship video. So I'll just trust that you do that piece on your own. But I do want to encourage you to come in person as much as possible, because it is in community and in groups where we believe that life change actually takes place, and that's where community happens and a lot of growth happens. But the other part of Wednesday nights, besides quality encounters with each other, quality encounters with God, is this sometimes training. And it's this very intentional training piece on Fuse student ministry, specifically at LifeSpring Church. We decided to do 4 different sessions or episodes or meetings, and each one is different. I am asking all of the Fuse volunteers. We have 2 groups of Fuse volunteers. We have our Fuse leaders, and these are the folks that are desiring to actively pursue middle school or high school students. So these are the folks that either have a Fuse group or are willing to take on a Fuse group at some point in time. These are the folks that we want to encourage them to just hang out with kids as much as possible, reflect the life of Jesus as they're hanging out with kids. Now, we also know that it takes support volunteers in order to have a safe environment for Fuse to happen. So our support volunteers are security, the security team, chaperones, our snack volunteers, and other folks that commit to coming at least once a month on a particular Wednesday and serve in a particular role. But they don't necessarily have to. I mean, they are so welcome to engage with students, but they may not be wanting to take that extra step further to come a little bit more often or to invest a little bit more of their lives. If you are brand new to Fuse and this is your very first experience with Fuse training, then what we'll ask you to do is start off as a Fuse support volunteer. And as you acclimate to what's going on and what we're doing and what God is doing through Fuse student ministry, then over time, and hopefully it could be a month, and it could be a season, it could be 6 months. But when you feel like, and we feel like, that it is time for you to take your next step and become a Fuse leader, then we want to encourage you to do that. So that's kind of the second step. Those folks that serve at Fuse as a support volunteer, I am asking of these 4 weeks that you would commit to come to just one. Now, hopefully the other 3 I would love for you to watch, because I think it's very important for you to see and capture all of the different pieces that we're going to be talking about over the next 4 weeks. But at least come in person, and it doesn't matter which one you come to, but at least come to one. Now, if you are a Fuse group leader, if you have a group or you're already deemed a Fuse leader, you've been serving at Fuse for a while and you know kids by name, or if you hope to become a Fuse leader where you eventually have your own group, then I want to encourage you to come to at least 3. I really want you to come to 4, but come to at least 3. I'm asking if you would come to 3 and then watch the video for the 4th one. It's summer. I know that schedules are crazy and not everybody can make it, and so that's why I'm doing these little videos to catch everybody up on the ones that they might miss. Now, July 1st is week 1, July 8th, then the 15th, and then the 22nd. And on each week, like I said, we're going to talk about something very intentional and something different. And the framework that I'm doing it is an overview, like if you think of a megaphone where it starts out really big and then it narrows down, narrow, and gets smaller and smaller. That's sort of the scope of what I'm hoping Fuse Summer Training is going to be. So the very first week, week 1, it's going to be a broad overview of what is Fuse. Why are we here? What is our mission? What is our vision? What values do we hold in Fuse student ministry? What is our strategy for reaching students that are far from God? What is our strategy for plugging them into groups and helping them to connect with leaders so that they can grow in their relationship with Jesus and learn to follow him step by step? So today is a broad overview. This is what Fuse is. Then next week, we are going to take a step in and we're going to look at Wednesday night. What happens on a Wednesday night? And we're going to narrow it down to 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. I'm going to cast the vision of what the perfect Fuse evening would look like. And we're going to go through just every tiny detail that happens on Wednesday nights. The 3rd week, we're going to take a step further in a little bit more, and we're going to look at groups. This is going to be a night where we will be talking about relationships that leaders will have with students. We will talk about how to start a Fuse group. We're going to talk about how to sustain one, what to do when there's a lot of drama in your group, what to do when you feel like nobody's showing up. We're also going to, on that week 3, have I call it a gray meeting. And when we have gray meetings, that's when we talk about maybe role play, certain issues that are, I call them gray issues because they're not black and they're not white. We'll answer some of the questions like, what do you do if a student comes to you and says that they are cutting? Or what do you do if a student comes to you and says that they're cutting? That's a little bit more black and white. You need to immediately come to one of the leaders, one of the pastors, either John or myself, and let us know. But a little bit more gray area might be if somebody in your group tells you that a cousin of theirs told them that they've been cutting, and you're not quite sure if they are just doing it for attention or not. So that's one small little example, but we're going to be talking a lot about other issues, gray issues, and hot button topics that come up if you're having a one-on-one conversation with students. So that's week 3. And then week 4, we're coming in a little bit more and beyond a leader's relationship with students and friendship with students, but just a leader individually. So we are going to be talking about yourself and myself and our relationship with our Savior and how that is so integral to serving. But I'm not just going to talk just about that specifically. We are going to be talking about spiritual gifts and the gifts that God has given each one of us and has ingrained in us. And some of those we have been using, and we know that's something that we're good at, and we've been practicing it. But some of the gifts we may not even know that that's something that God has put inside of us. And so we're going to hopefully unearth or rebirth some of the gifts that God has put in us, and learn how to use those gifts. The reason that we are spending an entire session on that, and we're going to have a guest speaker, Krista McMahon's going to come in and talk about some spiritual gifts, and we'll do some discussions with each other as well. But we want to really make sure that folks that are serving at Fuse want to be serving at Fuse. We want people that are hanging out with kids and saying that they're coming on a Wednesday night, not to feel like it's something that they have to do, but it's something that we get to do. We get to join God in what He's doing. When we are serving within our gift set, and not outside of that gift set, we have a lot more energy to continue pouring out and not be completely drained. I'm going to be enough about that because we're going to spend an entire session on that. All right, so the next thing that I did after sort of explaining the overarching vision for Fuse Summer Training is we did a little mixer. So you missed the mixer, but it was fun. We had everybody get in different groups. We played some games, nothing messy and nothing embarrassing, but just some things that were fun, but then also allowed each person to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. So sorry that you missed that. Come back in person next week and you'll get to experience something. I'm not sure what we're doing next week. And then I'm going to do a video for the very next session, the why. This next little section, we're going to talk about why. Why do we even have Fuse Student Ministry? Why do we open the doors from 6 to 8 on Wednesday nights? Why do we do our best to create an environment where kids that are far from God want to attend, where we hope to create an environment where they experience God and come to know Him? It's very tempting, especially in a training for any type of organization or ministry or program or anything, to begin with how does it work, what is it, when, where, and all of those details that we need to know in order to accomplish an objective. But it's super important to really begin with the question, why? Why even do it? I'm going to show you a couple little videos. I was looking through some of my old files and found this video that Brad Cooper, who is one of the main pastors at New Spring right now, but this video was from mid-February in 2015, and it was a personal video to Fuse Student Ministry at LifeSpring, congratulating us on our 1-year anniversary. So we started Fuse in February 2014, and this was a message from Brad just saying, hey, congrats, and I'm going to share it with you here right now. Okay, one of the things that Brad talks about is remember where you've been and celebrate. It's so important to stop what you're doing instead of just continuing to move forward, which I am so typical of doing. Instead of stopping and celebrating an accomplishment, I just go on to the very next thing. Not sure if any of you all are like that, but that's typically what I do. And watching this video reminded me that instead of just pushing forward, it's so important to stop, take a breath, look back at where we've come, and celebrate all that God has done. And so that's what we did in this next little section, this why. Watch the video of Brad, and then a Crossroads video that Robbie Venz created for us that we were going to show the congregation as a thank you so much for all of your support and what you've done to send all of these students, we had over 100 students going to Crossroads Winter Conference in January 2020, and we created just this little snippet of a video to give the folks at LifeSpring just a snapshot of this is what happened. This is what Crossroads is. But as you watch it, I want you to remember the stories and think about the stories that you know, and to answer the question, why? Why do we even do this? After watching those 2 little videos at Fuse Summer Training, we just kind of stopped and passed the mic around and just shared stories of kids we knew. We also just shouted out names, just shouted them into the air, like Michaela and Samara and Caden and Eli and Sydney. And there's something powerful about shouting out names of students and just letting God just kind of capture those names in his hands as he's capturing those children and just holding them close to his heart. It reminds us of what we're doing. And some of those folks have experienced God, and some of those folks have not and are very hard. And it's just important to remember this is what we're in it for. We are here to walk alongside these kids that have broken families or hurting, going through seasons where they are hurting and they need an adult to come alongside them and mentor them and love them and listen to them. So enjoy reflecting on why we do Fuse Student Ministry. This next section is some of the most important, but it's a little bit wordy. So hang with me, and if you, the folks that were present when I went over this, I handed everybody a sheet of paper or bulletin, and these were some of the things that they jotted down. So we're going to go over our mission, our vision, our strategy, and our values at Fuse. The mission is why we exist, a mission statement. So a mission differs from the vision. Mission is why we're here. Fuse exists to reach teenagers who are far from God and teach them to follow Jesus step by step. So that sounds very familiar if you are an owner at LifeSpring Church, because it is the exact same mission, but we just replaced, put in the word Fuse. So we exist to reach teenagers that are far from God. And I want to expand on this just a little bit, because this is different than your typical youth ministry at a regular church. It's different than the youth ministry that I've worked at when I have worked at other churches. And the reason is because we are an outreach church, and our Fuse Student Ministry is specifically an outreach ministry. Our mission while we're here is not to reach the students that are already in a relationship with Jesus, though we do welcome them, though we do want them to come in. Our mission is we exist to reach those teenagers that are on the outskirts, the ones that would never step foot in a church, the ones that are turned off or hurt by the church, or hurt by what they think is the church, or people that they feel have led them in a wrong direction, and they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. We want Fuse to be an environment where those folks can come in no matter what they look like, no matter what life choices they've had, no matter what circumstances they're in. They are welcome to come to Fuse. We want to reach them. And then it is also twofold. We want to teach them to follow Jesus step by step. And that's the discipleship portion. But we just don't want to just solely focus on that. But we do have a very intentional strategy that I'll get into here in just a little bit, of how to plug them into groups in order to teach them to follow Jesus step by step once they have acknowledged that Jesus is the Messiah. I don't know this precise statistic of our demographics, but one Wednesday night I was looking around and counting and kind of estimating, and I sometimes do this, about how many students we have attending on a Wednesday night when we average about 100 kids or so, 6th grade through 12th grade. How many of those students are churched kids versus unchurched kids? And it seemed to be about 70-30, in the 70 far from God or unchurched kids. And you may be surprised by that statistic, but that's the statistic, or the ratio that we're really aiming for. We want the majority of the students that are attending on a Wednesday night to be wowed because they are surprised that church is like this and is accepting and loving of them. Once they're in, we want them to become involved in the church. We want them to get into a group and be churched, come on a Sunday morning. But that statistic, 70-30, we have about 30% of our students, or about 30 out of 100 of our students, are consistently involved in a Fuse group. Not just signed up once at Crossroads, but I'm talking about students that are consistently involved in a Fuse group, consistently come at a Sunday morning, either to LifeSpring or to another church, or are actively pursuing Jesus in some way, shape, or form. And we love those kids, and we are hoping and trying to plug them into leadership positions. And we want kids that are in that 70% to become more of the kids that are in the 30%. But as they do that, we want them to spread the word and invite other kids, other friends, other students who are way out there, who feel completely unloved and wouldn't feel welcome in a church. And we want those students to start inviting more, to bring them in. And as that happens, the numbers will grow, but that ratio will about stay the same. We don't want it to just get more and more and more churched kids as they continue to grow, but we want those kids to understand that our mission is to expand and to reach other people who typically would not step foot in the church. So that's our mission. Our vision, the vision is what we are trying to accomplish. It's the overarching, like, oh, wow, this would be amazing. This is what we want to accomplish. Fuse has a vision to be a growing student ministry that reflects God's love without limits. That's our vision. And when I say growing, I do mean the numbers, and I've already talked about that. But I also mean growing spiritually. We want the students from the 70% to grow, to become more of these kids that are devoted to Jesus. We want them to grow in their health as well. We want our Fuse leaders to continue to grow spiritually as well. But we have a vision to be continuously growing, because we believe also that if things aren't growing, then they are dying. And we want it to be a ministry that completely reflects God's radical love without any limits. That as soon as somebody crosses the threshold of the front door, they feel there's something different about this place, and it's love. I feel cared for and I feel loved, and that's our vision. The strategy is, this is how we are trying to accomplish our mission. So our goal is to create irresistible environments where diverse teens feel welcomed and loved and are equipped to pursue intimacy with Christ. They're equipped to pursue community with others, and they're equipped to influence their neighbors. So that's the strategy. We want to create really cool environments, from being outside, free time. We want to create cool environments, and this will be more talking about next week, what it looks like on a Wednesday night, but where it's irresistible. And all different types of teenagers feel welcomed, like I belong here, I'm welcome here, and feel loved. A lot of them get love, a lot of them don't get love. So we want this to be, as our strategy, how we're accomplishing it is to create an environment where they feel loved. We also, kind of the twofold piece of this, the teaching them to follow Jesus, we want to teach them, we want to equip them to do these things. And equipping them means not just giving them fish, but it's teaching them how to fish. So we want to equip them to pursue their own intimacy with Christ, not something that they were just taught growing up, not something that they see us doing, but teach them how to actually do that. Community with other people, not just throw them into a group, but equip them on how do they pursue community with other people, and then equip them to pursue influence with their neighbors. Generation Z knows that they have a voice. They can use that voice for the flourishment of other people or to the devastation of other people role. And so we want to equip them to pursue influence positively with their neighbors. And that's the strategy. The other piece of this new ministry model that LifeSpring is moving into, which will be another video in and of itself, but the ministry model of funneling people into groups. And that's one of the overarching goals that we are trying to do in every ministry across the board at LifeSpring Church, from our preschoolers all the way through every adult that comes to LifeSpring. Is we believe that life change takes place in community, and so we want to funnel people into groups, and that's part of our strategy. It is in those groups that will hopefully equip teenagers to learn to follow Jesus step by step. And then the final section or segment of this little video is our values. These are our guiding principles. These are the things that Fuse, it's at the very core of who our Fuse leaders are, who our staff, the values of our staff, and our students that are emerging leaders. These are the values that they hold as well. And so we want to keep these values forefront. The first is joining God at work. We believe that God doesn't need me. I believe He doesn't need me. He can do whatever He wants to without me, but it is a joy and it is a gift to be able to have the eyes to see where God is working and then come alongside Him and join in that work. It is a way of serving that is very humble. We also value the diversity, and we don't want to just say we accept all different types of people, but we want to celebrate diversity. Rejoice in our differences, and not just agree to disagree, but celebrate some of those disagreements. We also value, and want to nurture young people, and not just love them, but really pour into them. And nurturing means to grow them up. We value unity, and we want to promote unity. And that is where the term Fuse family comes from. That was just an organic term that we just sort of picked up because the term family has changed over the years. And the majority of our students that attend Fuse do not live in the typical two-parent family that mom and dad who've always been together. The majority of our students either live with a single parent, a lot of them live with grandparents, some of them live with friends, and that we want the Fuse leaders as well as the students that come to Fuse to embrace who they are, who God created them to be, and then embrace each other as a family. That doesn't mean we'll always agree, but it means we can love each other. So we want to promote unity. We value growth and want to grow holistically, and holistically just means in all different areas, and I've already talked about that type of growth. And then serving humbly, knowing that it's not about us. It's not about me, but because you say so, God, I will do what it is that you're asking me to do. All right, we're moving into the last segment of Fuse Summer Training Session 1, and this last little segment is an extra little piece that is a tool, so to say, to help your spiritual growth. Every week I hope to give you basically, like if you think of a tool belt and there's different tools in your tool belt and you pull one out and it helps you accomplish one particular task. I'm going to offer you a tool, and maybe it's something that will help you personally, and maybe it is something that you can use in your ministry life or your work life, or maybe it is a tool where you're like, oh my gosh, this is not me, this does not help me at all, and I'm just going to toss it out. And that is totally fine too. And so this is just something that has really helped me grow in my relationship with Christ, as well as give me a little bit of structure so that I can pour out without getting burned out. Ugh. And it's called the Rule of Life. And I'm not at church right now because I had to bring the car back for my daughter, but I had a trellis at church, and on it were 4 different stages, and I'm going to explain this as best I can. A rule of life is something that you commit to doing. This is my rule, my guiding principles that I hope to do to basically, if you put like a fence around a puppy. The puppy can run wild and do all the fun things that the puppy wants to do, but the puppy is safe inside that fence. So this is basically a fence to give yourself some boundaries, so that if you live within these boundaries, you have the energy and the balance in order to continue serving, or to have the energy to give to your spouse, or to have the patience to give to your child, or other things like that. And so I'm just going to explain what a rule of life is using this trellis analogy. And then I'm going to show you what my rule of life looks like. And you can take it or leave it. You can be like, this is really helpful, or it's not at all. So at the base are the roots. There are 4 stages. Here's the roots. So at the roots, there are 3 different stakes that hold up the roots. And it is Sabbath, prayer, and sacred reading. So let me first explain this. This is going to be a little bit more. There's roots. Then there is relate. Roots, relate. Then going up a step is restore. Going up a step is restore. And then at the very top is reach out. All right. Reach out is at the very top, and I can't see myself to see if this is even in the camera. It is. The top is reach out. The thing is when we're serving in ministry, we tend to work out of this box first, kind of like learning ministry, the who, what, when, where, and how, instead of working with the why. We tend to start with reaching out with others. But the thing is we really need to start here at the bottom and make sure that we are strong at the bottom. And this trellis, rule of life, helps give you balance. And so on each level, there are 3 stakes on each one. And it's very important to really kind of balance all 3 of those. So in roots, there is Sabbath, there's prayer, and there's sacred reading. And Sabbath is your Sunday or your day of rest, where God ordained humanity to stop working and take a day of rest. Sabbath for me can be playing with my family. It can be taking a nap. It can be turning off my computer or cell phone for several hours at a time. Some people do it for 24 hours. I'm not there. But that's what Sabbath is, stopping and resting. Prayer is self-explanatory. We need to keep in communion with God frequently, every day, as breath prayers. And then the third one is scripture, making sure that we're staying in the Word. Moving up to relate, the 3 pieces of relate is our friendships, our sexuality, and our family. And when I'm doing this with my own children, we really focus on balancing family and balancing friends. And sometimes if they have a significant other, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I'll make sure that they keep that in balance with their friends, which is very important for teenagers to learn, that they can't just neglect friends for a significant other. But it's also important that we don't neglect family for friends, or that we don't neglect our friendship because we're pouring all of our time into our family. You also can look at that as extended family and immediate family as well. But that is how you relate to each other. And notice that on that friendship, it's relating to your friend. So it's not just pouring out to them. That's part up here in reaching out, being a witness. But it is being a friend, a two-way relationship, a give and take. friendship. All right, moving up, restoration, restore. The three parts are body, which is just staying healthy, exercising, or doing whatever it is that you feel like you need to do to restore your body. Sleeping, maybe it's just sleeping. Playing, it's important that we don't neglect play, and you can interpret that however you want, whatever makes you feel like it's fun. And money, it's important for the restoration of our souls to keep our money in balance and not too much or too little. And then up here at the top, this is where we get to reach out and witness. Or first, we'll look at work. So reaching out to others is part of your work. And if you're a student, then that's school. That's the way that you interact with others. And notice that the way that you interact with other people at work shouldn't be completely different than the way that you interact with people as you're witnessing. It should be the same. You should be the same person and loving all people as God loves you. The second one is justice, and that's social justice in the world, or civil rights, or whatever you feel like you need to do to help the world. And then your witness in that particularly is Fuse Student Ministry. If you're watching this training, then you are serving at Fuse, or it's serving in some other way, shape, or form, or capacity. And that is the framework, the Trellis framework for a rule of life. And now I'm going to just share with you a couple of the things about my own rule of life. As you can see, I have my 4 categories: the roots, which I have entitled Jesus, relate, restore, body, play, and money, and then reaching out, work, justice, and witness. And then I have further broken them down into, this is what I would love to do each day: daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and a few things I put annually on there. And I don't do all of these things. In fact, I need to go back through this and take out a whole lot of them, because it's better to create a realistic rule of life than one that is too far-fetched and you feel like you're failing. But I don't really feel like I'm failing, so it doesn't really bother me that I only do some of these. But the idea is that you put a few things in there and you try to just make that your rule. So daily, I want to try to meditate for a couple minutes each day. Every week, I want to have a weekly Sabbath. Every month, I want to try to memorize at least one scripture verse every month. And every quarter, I want to make it a point that and this falls under Sabbath, that I go away to the lake and spend some time just in prayer, reflection, writing, just being there with God once a quarter. Relating to my families, I've got every day I want to be able to tuck my kids into bed 4 times a week. I want to make sure that I go to sleep with Chad the same time, like 5 times a week, because when I did this, I was in school, and that may even say 3 times a week. I was in school, and so many nights I was up late studying or working, and it's really important to fall asleep at the same time. Every week, I want to connect with a soul friend. So maybe that's virtually, maybe that's in person. Every month, go out on a date or have a meal with another family once a month. And you can kind of read some of these. Restore every day. I want to eat healthy. I want to try to exercise. And if I don't, no big deal. Every week, I want to be generous. I want to simplify my possessions. Every month, give to the church, tithe, give to Young Life. Every quarter, I want to go camping as a family. And then reaching out to others. One of the things that I have on here that I wanted to be really diligent is to serve within my one thing. What I feel like God has gifted me in, and serve within that. Let my yeses be yeses and let my noes be noes. And really wanted to be able to give myself that freedom so that I could give more of myself, for the better parts of myself, to others. And I have certain things for weekly and monthly. One of them was talk to a neighbor every week. I want to slow down enough as I maybe not even have time to walk down the street, but I could at least walk over to across the street to a neighbor and say hi and chat with them for a little while. Those were certain things within my rule of life. Essentially, what this rule does, if you're looking at this and it's giving you a headache or it's making your head spin, and you're like, that is not me at all, then I would just want to say, completely forget it. Take everything that I just said, and this tool is not for you, and you can just toss it. But at least you know it, because you may run into somebody that it will be helpful for them. For me, and for a lot of other people that I know, it has created a safe place for me to be rather than do, because it's more important to be who I am than to do the things that God has called me to do. I'm a human being and not a human doing. And I know that on that rule of life, there's a lot of like tasks or things to do, but all of those things, for me, I intentionally thought through them because they help me be who God has called me to be. And that's the end of session 1, Fuse Summer Training. Hope it wasn't too much information, and we'll see you next time.